Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel, Donald Kent Art. This is a show on a topic that I've been living and dealing with for all my life, actually, but it's something I've been wanting to talk about with you to just create a show that shares my knowledge and experience with grieving. There's been some events, there's always events recently, that people are constantly dealing with issues of grief, loss, and it's something we nobody really can escape. It affects us personally. It affects us as a society. When you're talking about things like war and vaccines and all this other kind of stuff, it's death is the context of life, and so I felt this is something I'd like to put out some thoughts on this. For starters, I'm not trying to be morose. This is not a dark stream per se, but rather a realistic look at grieving and how to grieve and how to get through grieving. So I have a lot of experience with death, actually. So when I was 18, my father passed away, and throughout my life, I noticed how the changes that occurred from that gave me different insights and perspectives and emotional intelligence that helped me in life and then gave me the ability to help other people who are grieving. So that's always been a really positive result from that. And of course, nobody wants to deal with death of a loved one of any kind. It's one of the greatest things that we fear and avoid, and we don't want to deal with. And when we do have to deal with it, hopefully the thoughts that I can share with you will prepare you somewhat. So, death, in my view, is the true context of life. It's an illusion, to think that we're going to be here, nothing's going to change, and we have a very strange sense of time in terms of we see the days and the weeks pass, but before you know it, you're getting older, and the people around you are changing, and all these things are happening, and this is just what it is. But we kind of always see death as this far off thing, and it's something that affects other people. Whereas if we live in the moment and see there's no future, there's no past, we have a stronger sense of living. And when death comes, we will have lived a fulfilled life. So this is another aspect of it. Another side to this truth is, who are you? What is the meaning of your life? What is your purpose? How are you living? Are you living in context with death? Are you realizing that you don't have infinite time? So these are important questions every person has to grapple with. Grieving changes people. There's just something profound about it. It's earth shattering for most people, and it's a kind of a portal that you are forced to go through, and then you come out another person on the other side, in a sense. Hopefully, a more mature person. Hopefully, a more compassionate person, a more wise person. I can say I know someone in my life who is dealing with grief in a very negative way, and this person has chosen to give up on God and is angry at God and doesn't believe in anything anymore. And this is a type of emotional immaturity that is, I, I'm not trying to insult this person by saying that, but it's a plain truth. So, that someone like that really needs a great deal of empathy and compassion to help this person work through, what they have to work through. Um, One thing that death and grieving will do is it'll put you face to face with your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs, your cosmological understanding of life and death. And if people kind of go through life living just from the ego, living for their pleasures, following orders, and going along with the norm and these things. That can be a very, very shocking experience. When my father was sick when I was young, I was just a kid. I was just 14, but I went on a crazy journey to try to study different religions and philosophy to try to make sense of it. I was at the time a very devout Catholic, and had a lot of like counseling sessions with the priests about things, and everything that they were telling me wasn't helping me at that age, and primarily because of intense, incredible fear, like just blinding fear. And not only just the fear of the pain of losing my father, but the fear of facing the rest of my life alone. And so this is one of the essential existential questions of grief, is the kind of, are we alone? The aloneness of losing someone. I compare losing a loved one to losing a limb. If I asked you, would you rather amputate an arm or a leg, which one would you choose? It's not a kind of question you want to answer. It's an emotional amputation, and it's something you live the rest of your life in a with this kind of wound. However, you can use this pain to change and grow, and there is a healthy way to approach grieving rather than a sort of self-destructive way. So these are just some topics that I want to kind of present to you. The grieving process. So someone who, when someone dies, there's different types of grieving processes. If for example, you have a relative who has a long, painful struggle with cancer or dementia or something of this nature, there is a kind of exhaustion and almost a sense of relief that it's over. If you've ever known anyone like this, they look like they haven't slept in a year. It's a very hard life. It's a hard thing to go through, I should say. Whereas when it happens kind of more sort of quickly, by accident, and we're in a state of shock, then that's its own kind of, I compare it to like a nuclear bomb going off in your life, and you are dead center in the nucleus of that. And in the heat of the moment, you are eviscerated. You're completely, screaming and crying, and you enter a type of hell, just a total madness. You're just in a kind of a blender of broken glass and constant pain. It's very hideous. It's very, very profoundly terrible. And this is, of course, the time when friends and family have to come in and show, their love and character and loyalty, and get in there and handle the logistics of life. Anything from, just, buying groceries to helping set up the funeral, and just being with the people who are grieving in that moment. There's not much you can say to someone in that moment. It's just it's really kind of more about being there and sharing their pain, feeling their suffering with them, surrendering to the tears that they're going through, and holding them, loving them, being there. So there's, we want to say things, and we try to say things, and we go through a kind of a weird shock of our own, where we think that he or she is gone, and I can't believe that they're not here anymore. And it's surreal. It's a very, very strange, surreal experience. When my father died, I had a habit when I was young, where around like 4:30 every day, I would go to the front door, and I'd wait to see my dad pull in the driveway coming home from work, and then, hey, dad's home, and and talk and family time, and get dinner, and just that kind of happy, loving family time. And instinctually, I would always go to the door at 4:30 and wait for the car. So it's I know that's a hard, it's hard to think of these things, but that's going to happen. and it's, there's going to be a lot of tears. There's just no way around it, over it, or under it. You got to go through it. So it's the time where friends and family absolutely have to step up their game, get involved in being there. I would say the hardest part is when you're alone at night sleeping, because you're not sleeping, you're crying, and that's probably the very, very worst of it, when you feel the most alone. So, whatever you can do, be there, be there, be there. So as time passes, and it depends also on sort of how religious you are. If you have that kind of support network, that can be really profound and very beautiful. I did the eulogy at my mother's funeral, and it really moved everyone in the family. And they wanted copies of the eulogy, and it meant something. It was an important historic memento. So we need closure of some kind. We need a ceremonial closure. um Families have, you know grudges and difficulties with each other and stuff. It's time to set that aside for a while, anyway. And kind of work through that. But the strange, I think the highlight here for me is that when the funeral is done, what's next? Because we all kind of know about, yeah, okay, bang, the bomb went off, we all have to rush in, do what we can. But it's a week later, or 2 weeks later, a month later, 6 months later. The people who are grieving are still grieving profoundly. It didn't just stop. I know we all went back to our jobs and school, or this or that, but the person who has lost someone has to carry that wound. And so they are coping with it alone most of the time. And yes, we do have our special friends, good friends, family, who kind of check in on each other. Hey, checking in, how we doing? Da da da. So you got to have a long game. You need to have a long game with this. That's the key message that I'm trying to convey in this broadcast. So there's a lot of aftermath. Some of it, much of it can be financial. That devastated my family. I still the events of my father's death when I was young are something that my son is going to feel financially. That it was that devastating. So it's these that's a whole other thing that people don't even talk about. Um, so let's talk about methods of grieving and how to help yourself. So I'm really just sharing what I know. I'm not some kind of like certified psychiatrist and something like that. I'm just sharing what I know and what I've done for myself and for others. So if you're angry at God, or you're atheist, or you don't have any kind of belief system, then you're going to struggle way more, way 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 more than other people. And I would wager that you will get kind of more deeply embedded into the abyss of your own nihilism. So this isn't a show about like, does God exist? I'm gonna start off with God exists, and then kind of take it from there. um so all is God, and life and death, our bodies, our spirits, are all connected to that. And so from my perspective and my way, that is deeply comforting, but also deeply fascinating and marvelous. And so this life is a narrative, it's a journey, it's a movie, it's a comic book, it's a story, it's a song. It has a beginning, middle, and an end, and this is it. And so when you face death, you actually have a metacognitive view of your own existence. You kind of step back from it and say, wow, I'm reading the novel of my life, but I'm the one with the pen in my hand. And where am I going to go from here? Where do what's the end of this story? What does it mean? What is the theme of my life? So it kind of you know puts you in charge more of what you're going to decide how to live your life. because when you see that someone you love has lost their life, you now are facing your own impermanence. So my view of the afterlife, I've researched this on my own for many years, and I'll never stop researching it. I see it as different dimensions. I know from there's religious views and etc. But I can say that I am beyond believing. I am knowing that the afterlife exists. I know that spirits exist. My mother has done a lot of paranormal things around the house. There's other kinds of spirits that visit you in your dreams. And that's just a big topic that, there's a lot of gravitational pull to that topic, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's a big rabbit hole. But I would say it's time to actually start digging back into your own spiritual structures, whatever systems of belief you have, whatever practices, and specifically to create ritual prayer. Now, meditation and prayer are different things. They can overlap, they can mix. Prayer can be meditative, but creating, for example, a little altar to the person that you love and that you lost, some cherished memorabilia, items, photographs, flowers, incense. You can put little bowls of candy or fruit there, and it's your window. It's kind of like your Zoom call screen for the one that has passed. And whenever you have your ritual time, you send your love to that person, and with your etheric body, with your soul body, you hug them, you hold them, you kiss them, and you let them know, I'm with you, I still love you, I care about you, and all I have is love for you. And so here's the thing that nobody talks about. Imagine you have think about my father. He knew he was going to die, and he told us, I will be watching you for the rest of your life, and not at certain times, but I will be watching you, and I'm going to be around you. So know that for sure. And so think about if you lost your life and you have a wife and children left behind, how much pain would that be, to think like, I'm on the other side and I can't, I can't be there for my children and my wife, husband, whoever, my family, So I feel that souls must suffer greatly. Souls probably grieve their own deaths to the extent that they are separated from their friends and family. So, granted, I don't know, exactly what they're experiencing on the other side. There are studies on people who have had uh, sort of near-death experiences. Thousands of cases that have been documented of people who have died and come back to life. Some cases very severe, where they drowned or they were in a horrendous car accident and they shouldn't have lived, and somehow their soul came back into their body. And there's a very high rate of reporting that is almost all the same in terms of, this is what the death experience is like. And those people who have returned have no fear of death anymore. Completely, totally, utterly changed their cosmological experience of life, their view of life, their existential experience of life. So, and in many cases, family comes to greet you. So I see my mother and my father as kind of like traveling in another country. They're off in whatever land, that you don't need a passport to go there. It's probably a lot better than where we are. Anyway, they're there and they're doing their thing, and I'm going to join them when I'm done with my business here on earth. So that is a very comforting thought. And again, I'm basing it in a lot of this kind of research. I've excuse me, I've had a lot of personal I don't know what I don't know what the word is for this, paranormal experiences that are profound. And there's no way that you can prove to another person that, my father came to me in a dream. I can't prove that to you. I can know it in absolute 100% certainty. And I can sort of cite other sources of research on these type of topics, the soul body, the ethereal body, other dimensions. There Science is finally kind of coming, not finally, but there is a science to death per se, if you want to learn about it. So I would recommend that people do. I think that we're always thinking about, how are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to save money? How are we going to buy a house? This and that, whatever. How are we going to die? Only you can live your life. Only you can die your death. How will you evolve? Where is the next sort of soul vibration that you will gravitate to? These are the questions that have to be answered. And no, everybody can tell you this, everybody can tell you that. There's books and videos and gurus and priests and all kinds, but in the end, you are your own priest, you are your own guru, you are responsible for your own death. So I'm not trying to be morose by this. I'm simply trying to say that life is, let me start off with saying, I believe in reincarnation. Life is eternal. Consciousness is eternal, that God is the sum of all consciousness. We are the ideation of God. The soul of our soul is God. And that we are on this experience in the third dimension, learning, feeling, growing, evolving, but also devolving. Okay, so this is the thing about this world is, how do we live here in such a way that when we're gone, we graduate out of it? So this is a key topic to think about. Very heavy stuff, very philosophical stuff. So um, understanding the cosmology of life and death, um, all is God, connection to God, moment to moment. You could think that air is God, and you're breathing God in and out, and it's integrated right into your very life force. Um, Ritual prayer, memorials. Of course, memorials for me are usually sad experiences. Every year I go to my father's grave on the day that he died. And I always cry, and but there's a kind of a respect that I'm showing him. There's something about the ritual of that is deeply meaningful to me. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't do that. It's a time for me to talk to my son about my dad, and try to connect him. He never had a chance to know him, see the continuity of our family. So living in the now, living in the present, um, it's a strange mental illusion that there is a future and that there is a past. There really is only the moment. And yeah, we have to think of the future and, the past, da da da. But this is what the technology of meditation is for. Is it puts you in the moment, and God is the moment. God is the eternal present. And so when you're just simply in the moment of breathing, and your mind is empty and simply a mirror, and you are just experiencing, then you are one with God in that moment, and you are at peace. And so try to establish that, try to get into some routine where you have that. I do it on and off throughout the day. Nighttime before bed is excellent, very, very good for your sleep. Um, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, and it's like, crap, I can't go to sleep. Well, I'll meditate for 15 minutes and bing, sleep like a baby. So like that's a real nice thing. But the point I'm getting to here is living in joy. What? We're talking about death. We're talking about grieving. What are you talking about? Joy. So the joy is all of the celebration of all the great things that those people have done, those people who have gone to the other side. Remember them, celebrate them, laugh about them, and laugh with them. Let their spirit laugh with you together. Hear the sound of their laughter from your memory. See the glimmer in their eyes. Remember the funny, great things you did together, and cherish that. That has value. I'm not saying live in the past, but this is the beautiful thing that you can do, and it's transformative in the regard that we're kind of laughing at death. We're laughing at pain. We're kind of having a beer with death, and just saying, yeah, I'm alive and here I am, and I'm going to do the best I can, celebrate, do something good for the world, leave a legacy, whatever it is that is meaningful to you personally, but not to live in fear and pain. And so neurologically, and this I'm massively guilty of, and that's why I'm able to kind of talk about it. Neurologically, when you live in your grief, you prolong your grief and you define yourself by your grief. You are stunting your growth. You're torturing yourself. Um, you're not living up to your potential. You're kind of living life from behind glass, and it's someone who's in grief might be very angry at me for saying that, like, F you, how could you be so cold? I'm in a lot of pain, da da da. I live in oceans of pain. I drink oceans of pain. I totally inhabit the world of grief and death entirely. And but to the point now where I'm more fully alive because of it. You see the difference. There's an alchemy. There's a significant alchemical change. And it has a lot to do with choice. It has a lot to do with understanding the nature of life and death and reality, the nature of energy, the nature of consciousness, and accepting all of these kind of, sort of machine parts and kind of putting them all together into a total worldview and a total lifestyle, per se, that is, in a sense, true. It's kind of, I mean, grieving is true, or suffering is true, but I think that joy is true. God is true. Their spirits are still around us. Do you think they want us to suffer? Think about that. As I think about my mom, whose ghost is around me frequently, like daily, and there's just flicking lights in the house, and once in a while she'll knock something off a table. Nothing. Don't knock any glasses off the table, Mom. But it just says, like, I'm here, I love you, because that's kind of what it is in the end, right? It's love. God is love, right? In the Bible, that's what they say. I'm not your, classical Christian to say that, but I completely resonate with that. And I feel that the more we embrace that truth, the more we move towards that truth, the better our healing process. The better our healing process. Because when how do I say this? When my mother died, or when anybody in your life dies and you're experiencing grief, the pain of it is so unbearable. You shut down. You can't function. It's torture, and it's like, pulling your intestines out over and over and over, and it's just agony. It's incredible agony, and the pain of it blinds you. You can't think straight in that time, which is why friends and family have to come in and help. But you will have to cope with it. You will have to manage it. And that hurts, but that's the kind of growing up process that grief forces us through. This is what I meant. You come out another person on the other side. So for starters, meditation, prayer, ritual, these are systems you can use daily, anytime, to help you move with this. And, and again, the different religious perspectives or traditions are going to have different ways to do that. With, you follow your way, you find your way. um, but I think the ultimate truth here, the ultimate lesson in a sense, is that we have to let go of our egos. And we talk about ego, we usually think of it as like, on the one hand, this guy's a jerk because he's so egocentric or something like that. And then on the other hand, it's like, this person lacks confidence. They should have a stronger ego. So we see it kind of just in that context, but it's much deeper than that. It's your existential self. It's the idea of yourself that you are holding on to and not letting go, because that person you love that you lost is part of yourself, especially if they're, mother, father, child. Those people are so profoundly integrated into a part of you. They're like organs in your body. You wouldn't want to have your heart cut out. This I know it's kind of bold, but it's true. The pain is profound. So and then how do you let go? I've always found that like frustrating, the idea of, oh, just let go. It's shut the fuck up. It's not that easy, just let go, oh, it's so flowery. It's a process. And half of it is intellectual, half of it is sort of emotional, spiritual, I guess. um for me, understanding the kind of the cosmology and the philosophy and religion, that's helpful to me. Some people are just pure emotion and have no, it doesn't matter, oh, we're saying prayers for you, or so that, shove off, I don't want your prayers. Some people get angry. There's so many kinds of ways that people can approach or express their grief. But in the end, again, it's you. You can live your life. Only you can die your death. So the death of the ego is the life of God. The death of the ego is in a sense, the birth of God within you. So you exist. You are a three-dimensional spirit, and you got your name and your social security number and your job and da 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 da. But you know what what makes you not just a bunch of cells? You know what I'm saying? So it's a heavy topic. It's something that people have been contemplating for centuries, since probably the dawn of time. Da, da, da. I'm not going to try to get all wax philosophic on you here with that, but go through it. You will go through the dark night of the soul, but you're never alone. Your God is with you. Your loved ones are with you. The spirits are with you, and you can and should draw power from that. Don't don't see yourself as in the abyss. You're not. You feel it. You sure do feel it, but actually you're not. And so use your pain to drive yourself closer to God. Use your pain to drive yourself up and out of the darkness into the light. So I know that for someone who's really suffering, this is kind of like fluffy words, but it's something that you can return to and contemplate, and I hope that it will be helpful for you. So adjusting. So this is again the long game. So um, you're in a sort of a new world without this person. Your habits, how are how are you going to adjust to this new life with their absence? So a lot of people will fill it up with alcohol. Smokers are going to be smoking a lot more, and there's TV and there's all kinds of, that's not obviously filling it up, but you do need a break too, right? You can't, you might be emotionally exhausted from this. Just don't be abusive to yourself. So use grief to fortify your spiritual practice, bring you closer to God, have less attachment to the ego. So what the lesson is in the end is recognizing the impermanence and the shifting, changing nature of everything. You, your world, everyone around you. It's in a constant flow in some, in a progress. So with my background, I'm always seeking balance. I'm always trying to find where there is imbalance, there's disease. Where there is imbalance, there is suffering. Um, so maybe try to look at your life from that perspective. Recognize that you're kind of surfing your way through these things, and there's going to be, you want to get to the smooth waters. Let's just kind of put it like that, and that's where balance comes in. So it's a big topic. It's something, there's a lot of information out there about it. I just wanted to share things that I know, things that I've done, and kind of put it out there for people who may need it someday. So I wish you well. God bless, and take care.